In this video, we're going to talk about polynomials and what those are, and then we're going to talk about how to add, subtract, and multiply them. So this is going to be two learning targets combined together. Adding and subtracting polynomials is one, and multiplying polynomials is another. So first, let's just get some definitions out of the way. We talked before about combining like terms. I just want to really quickly define term for you. Term is an algebraic expression that has only multiplication and division between variables and constants. Okay, so between letters and numbers. Okay, so for example, in this polynomial, x cubed minus 6x squared plus 9, the terms are x cubed, that represents x times x times x, that's multiplication between variables. Okay, 6x squared, that's multiplication between 6 times x, okay? And 9. It doesn't have to necessarily be multiplication. 9 is a constant, but it's still a term, okay? So this polynomial has 1, 2, 3 terms. It's each part that's multiplied and multiplied together, okay? Usually separated by multiplication or addition and subtraction. I'm sorry, separated by addition and subtraction. So terms are separated by addition and subtraction. Polynomial is a sum of terms that have positive integer exponents, okay? So for example, x cubed minus 6x squared plus 9, just like the example before, is a polynomial. It's just a sum of terms, okay? So a polynomial is just a sum of terms, but the only thing that has to happen is that it has to have positive exponents. So this exponent of 3 is positive, 2 is positive, and really this is 9 to the first power. There's just one of them, so that's also positive, so that means that this is a polynomial. Okay, so when we go ahead and add polynomials, it's going to be really easy. All it's going to do is just combine like terms, and if you remember from before, like terms are terms that have the same variables raised to the same power. So in this case, we've got x squared, this term, and this term right here, another x squared. So we've got 5x squared plus 8x squared, and that's going to be 13x squared. Okay? Now we're going to look at the next term, and we've got a minus 3x and a plus 10x. So really, how I want you to think about this is really it's like plus negative 3x. Okay? So we've got a negative 3x and a positive 10x. This is where people make the most mistakes, so please make sure that you pay attention that there's a negative 3x. That becomes a 7x plus, once again, we've got 7, and we've got a minus 25, which is like a plus negative 25. Okay, so we've got negative 25 and a 7 combined together. It's going to give me a negative 18. Or you could also write it 13x squared plus 7x minus 18. I would accept either answer. Subtracting 18 is the same as adding negative 18. All right, now in this case, we're subtracting polynomials. That means we're subtracting this whole polynomial. So what you could also think of it as is that it's subtracting each of these things. So it's really subtracting 7x cubed, subtracting 3x squared, subtracting a negative 15x, and subtracting a negative 30. Because remember, this is like plus negative 15 plus negative 30. Okay? And remember from last year that when you subtract a negative, what happens is that you're really adding a positive, okay? So then we've got just this first term doesn't change. We're just subtracting the last polynomial. So that subtraction applied to every single term in that last polynomial. So now I just need to look for like terms. So I've got x cubed with another x cubed. I've got an x with an x. I've got a constant with a constant. And it looks like that x to the second power is on its own, so we're not going to have to combine that with anything. So we've got an 8 minus a 7. That's going to give me 1x cubed. And remember, we usually don't write that 1 out in front. Okay? We've got our 4x plus our 15x, that's 19x. We've got 10 and 30, that's 40. And then our last is a minus 3x squared. And usually what we do is we put the terms in order, in descending order from exponents. So we want to have the 3 out front, x to the third. We want to have the x squared next, then the x to the first power next, and then the constant last. Okay? So now we're going to talk about multiplying polynomials. This is going to use the distributive property. So we're going to distribute by multiplying this 5x times each part and keeping that sign in the middle of a subtraction. Okay? Now if I take 5x times x, remember this is really 5 times x, which I could also combine the x times x to become x to the second power, or x squared, minus 5 times x times 7, doesn't matter what order, really that's the same as 5 times 7 times x, so that would be 35x. Right? And we're done because we can't combine any more like terms. Same thing again, I'm going to multiply the polynomial 3 times the polynomial x squared plus 7x minus 10. So I'm going to take 3 times x squared plus 3 times 7x, or minus, 3 times 10. So 3x to the second power plus 21x minus 30. Okay? Last thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about binomials. So binomials are a special kind of polynomial. The prefix bi means 2. Okay, so binomials are polynomials with 2 terms. Okay, so this method is called the FOIL method. We use this when we have 2 binomials that we want to multiply together. We're going to multiply first, outside, inside, last. So this is similar to the distributive property. This is just a special case that we're going to come across later on that we want you to know about, is when you have to multiply binomials. So we've got 2 binomials, and really I'm going to do FOIL, which is really distributive property. So I'm going to take the first term times the first term, that's the f. Okay, so x times x, plus I'm going to take the outside terms, so the ones that are on the outside. So that would be x and 9 are my outside. So I'm going to take x times 9 plus, let's make this plus a negative 7 just to keep everything straight. We're going to do our inside, so that's this one and this one here. So that's negative 7 times x. And then our last terms, so our negative 7 and our 9 are our last terms. Okay? Okay, so go ahead and multiply here. We got x times x, that's x to the second power, plus x times 9, we write 9x. Negative 7 times x, we write negative 7x. And negative 7 times 9 is negative 63. Now combine my like terms here. We've got an x and an x to the first power. So x squared plus, let's go ahead and highlight these just for consistency. These are like terms. We're going to get 2x total. And then I'm just going to write minus 63 just because it's easier than plus negative 63, and they mean the same thing. And now I'm done. Okay, so once again, we're going to do first x times x. I'm going to go ahead and write down x squared. Outside is x. And do you see how this is the distributive property? First, I'm distributing my x, taking x times x, x times 1. Then next, I'm going to distribute the negative 10. So I'm going to take the negative 10 times my x and times the 1. That's my inside and my last. Okay? So x squared plus x. Then we got to do negative 10x. It's negative 10 times x. And then negative 10 times 1 is negative 10. combine my like terms, I'll have x squared plus negative 9x, because remember this is like 1. And then I'm just going to go minus 10. All right? So here's what we want you to think about before class. Before class, we want you to think about how you could use FOIL to solve x plus 4 to the second power. So write about how you would use FOIL to solve it, and then go ahead and solve it out for me. Okay? So go ahead and multiply out once you've figured out how you're going to use FOIL to do x plus 4 to the second power.